second inspirational speaker, which is my colleague Anessa, and she will now tell us more about what do these scary big venture capital investors actually look for in startups, and how can you make a good first and maybe also second impression. And you.
Thank you, Marcus, for a great introduction. Due to the time, the presentation has been a bit shortened, so we will talk just, if we go to the next slide, a bit about Hadean, venture capital in general, and then how to present an investment case. And then I will give some tips on an exercise that one can do prior to presenting investment cases to potential investors. But first, let's kick off and talk a bit about Hadean Ventures and VC in general on the next slide. So Hadean Ventures is probably, as Marcus has mentioned, it's a life science venture capital firm with a particular focus on the Nordic region. My name is Anessa. I'm together with my colleague Marcus. We're investment analysts at Hadean. Hadean has main offices in Oslo in Norway and a second office in Stockholm, Sweden. It was founded in 2017 and has currently 85 million euros in asset under management. Our investment team consists of PhDs, MBAs, and MDs, and we invest in pharmaceuticals, medical technology, diagnostics, digital health, and e-health. So far, we have invested in 12 companies, and we've had one exit. Many of the companies that we have invested in, ideas came out of universities. So I believe some of you that are present at the conference here also have ideas that maybe have sprung out from the universities. If we go to the next slide, we can see when we're talking about venture capital, we're talking about a type of financing that can fund startups and early stage companies. So it's one of the building blocks to help finance your company. It depends, of course, on the stage of your company, amount of money that you're seeking, and the risks that are currently facing your company. But in practicality, VC firms gives you money in return for equity, which is a percentage ownership of your company. And there are different kind of funding strategies. You have the earlier stage your company is, the higher the risk is. And you see that grants and angel investors are perhaps more relevant. And then when you move towards the right of the scale here, you come into the venture capital sweet spot. And the further right you go into the private equity, bank loans, and the stock exchange, where you have a lot later stage of the companies with a reduced risk. So venture capital can be is kind of like in the middle, but depending on the firm and the mandates, they can move from early to late stage, depending really on their mandates. So if we go to the next slide, it's important when you reach out to VC companies to find out what their core focus is. So you need to know what stage your company is at, how much money are you looking to finance, are you looking to get? Is it 1 million euros or 20 million euros? Are you on the market? Do you have sales? If you have sales, are they reoccurring? What kind of company are you? Are you a digital health company, an e-health company? Are you making an app? Are you making a drug? And you need to find a VC that fits your stage and type of company. So Hadean, for example, we are an early preclinical stage companies in life sciences. Our focus is mainly European companies. So, and we have quite a broad focus. For example, we'll look at e-health and diagnostics and also medical technologies, medtech. A lot of VC firms have even a more specific focus. So make sure to look into that and learn a bit more about who you're approaching before reaching out. And if we go to the next slide, It's also worth noting that you should know your funding round. So is it a seed financing? Is it a Series A, B, or C? And the indication of the size of the round and the money needed. So because funding rounds don't always fit into the stage of the company. Today you can see that somebody's having a Series C, but the Series C doesn't fit with the stage of the company that maybe still might be preclinical. So typically when VCs talk about seed, it could be proof of concept, early prototype development, and the funding need is in the thousands to low millions. Whereas a Series A could be a preclinical stage or something entering the first clinical trial, and the funding need is from depending on the needs, of course, but it can be in the range from 5 to 20 million euros. So that is a bit in general about venture capital and funding. Now I'm going to talk a bit about what you should think of when presenting an investment case and the typical process of VC interactions, what you need to present, and what kind of format it should be. And it's perhaps suitable as the pitch session is on now, and I've heard a couple of you present. So taking this to the next step might give you some notes that you might find interesting. So from the first contact to the investment can take many months, and I'm saying many months. So the first contact will be, for example, here at this conference. It can also be via a referral, or you reach out to the investor via an email. And just as this one, there are many conferences that you have one-on-one meetings available. Use them, invite investors, set up meetings, schedule, share your idea. Make sure when you do that you have a non-confidential pitch deck ready on this initial pitch meeting, and then that you have a confidential slide deck that you can provide after you have signed an NDA with the investment company that you are speaking with. And be prepared that there will be Q&As. The investors will ask for your data room. They will go into further due diligence and look at legal aspects. There are many details and many detailed questions that will be addressed, and make sure that you are prepared to answer these. So just keep in mind that the process is long, and start early. If you know that you need money, that you have a runaway in 6 months, for 6 months runaway, it's not enough to start 6 months before you run out of money. You should start a lot earlier, at least a year, as the procedure can take quite some time. And as I mentioned previously, it's really important to remember who you reach out to and what focus they have. Look into the website and see who you're going to talk to and follow up, as they can be very busy. So if we go to the next slide. When you present a pitch deck, you should cover the key aspects that we as investors need to evaluate. So the market, the technology, the preclinical and clinical data, these are for health science companies, the business model, the development timeline, how are you going to use your money, and the team should be included. This is an absolute minimum that should be included. The slides that you present should be informative, and one should be able to understand it without an explanation. But at the same time, it shouldn't be a textbook. So you need to kind of like find the balance between that. Answer the questions and provide the information. So balance the information, but keep it precise. You know that at a later stage, after our first introduction meeting with the company, and after you've signed an NDA, you can provide more information but you need to have enough information to awake the curiosity of the investors and provide answers that are the minimum that we wish to know. Otherwise, the quality of the pitch deck will be seen as immature. But always remember that the first pitch deck that you share and present should be a non-confidential one, and it's the one that you share before you sign an NDA. And remember to sign NDAs before sharing any confidential information with the investors. Have a pitch deck that is, you probably all know it, but I'm just going to mention it anyways. Have it in PowerPoint and PDF. Make it easy to attach and share posts during and after conferences or intro meetings. And when you have a first meeting with a company, with an investment company, for example, expect, depending on if it's a conference or it's a scheduled meeting that via direct outreach, it can last from 30 minutes to 45 or an hour. And you will probably meet an analyst and possibly a partner. It really depends on, because probably you have shared your non-confidential slide deck with us. We have had a look. We have looked into the area and looked into what's going on. So maybe we've talked to a colleague and the colleague will join us in the call. It can be a partner or another investment analyst. So during our meeting, we are prepared, and we also expect you to be prepared. So we will have questions on the technology. So we can ask very specific questions. For example, if it's a drug, have you tested this drug in a mouse model? Which mouse model did you use? Why didn't you use another mouse model? We know that there have been studies using a similar kind of drug that have used these mouse models. Why did you choose to do that? You need to be prepared to answer these kind of questions. We will also have questions on your business model. For example, on the regulatory pathway for the US, or on if you have a freedom to operate with your IP. These are also questions that we are interested in getting answered. And remember, when we ask questions, be open to them, because you can learn a lot. Although it's not, it doesn't end up being a successful investment with that investor that you talk to, you can still learn from an investor perspective what information we are seeking, so that next time you talk to an investor, you are prepared and you know what you need. And this is just how I like to read pitch deck. So it's an exercise for you guys. So I would recommend you to provide precise answers towards an executive summary. And this executive summary you can have on a one-pager or integrate it into your pitch deck. And that is, the first point of that is, what is your idea? And why does your idea have potential to become a large business? What unmet needs are addressed by your business idea? And has this been recognized by the industry? Do they know that there is an unmet need here? Do you have some numbers on it? Why should customers buy or in-license your product or technology? What are the key points of your plan to achieve your strategy? So how do your milestones look like, and what will be achieved and must be achieved in the next 24 months? Do you know your IP position, and how strong is your IP position? Do you have an overview over the market and the competition? If not, you should. It's very important, because we look into these things and we look into companies that are doing the same thing as you are and try to see how you differentiate. So you should do the same. You should be aware of who your competitors are and what your USP is. And you should have, when looking at the management, do you have defined positions in areas of responsibility? How does your future financing strategy look like? Do you have the current investors that you have? Are there professional VC firms? Yes, no. How does the syndication of of potential investors look like? This is information that is very good to share with potential investors. And also think about how the likely exit scenarios look like for investors, and look at comparables. Look at companies that have done similar thing, not identical, but similar thing, how they have been, what the prices they have been acquired at, or if they have IPO'd, what the market capital, MCAP of the companies are. So that is a pretty short, but within the time range, presentation from me. And I was thinking that this would be an interactive presentation, and I would love for you, if you have any questions, to answer these. So go ahead. I don't know if there are any questions. Perhaps Marcus can ask me a question, or Giacomo, or anyone, if you have any. If not, please feel free to reach out. You can find my profile, my email address on the Giant platform. And I look forward meeting you and listening to the pitches that will be presented in the next session.
Yes, thank you, Nessa. We have like 5 more minutes, so I give you the chance to also maybe share one, although most of that was already a bit your opinion, maybe also a comment on what you do when an investor says no.
What you do when an investor says no?
Yeah.
Okay, you have to try, like, I would try to understand why did the investor say no? Because ask for a reason, and often you will get a reason. You will, and this answer will provide you a potential weakness that your company might face. If it's within the scope of the company, if the stage, if everything fits with the investor that you are looking to get the grants from, and if the investor has money, an active fund, remember the fund needs to be active. So if they are closing the fund, they don't have room for more investments. So it might be sometimes bad timing that you get a rejection. But if that's not the case, ask for a reason. Try to understand why it is a no, and see how you can eliminate that no with your company, and or adjust it, and see if you can represent it to the company, or when reaching out to a second investor, how you can eliminate the potential weakness that has been shared by the investor. But I believe, Marcus, you know, we look at a lot of companies, and we get back to companies, and often I very often share the reasoning for why we do not invest, but it's not that often that the companies ask for why, which I think is a legit question. Do you agree with me?
Yes, I in general agree, and I mean also I think that also goes for us and most investors. I mean, a no now does not mean a no a year from now.
Exactly.
It
can be a stage, you know, that you're too early stage and you need some more data. So once you have that data, reach out again, follow up. Once you have more information on your investment opportunity, follow up with potential investors.
Yeah. Exactly. Be proactive. Don't expect the investor to come back, because we usually have too many companies to handle to keep that overview ourselves.
Yes, and a lot of, you know, and if we don't reply to an email, send it again, because sometimes it might occur that you end up that we just don't read it, or we haven't seen it. So don't be shy about following up with emails. It's a good thing.
Yes. Yeah, I think with that, we have also filled the time very well. Thank you very much for the insights. I,
My pleasure.
of course, agree with all of them.
I'm happy to hear.
Then we can move on to the second part of the pitch session. We have 4 more very interesting startups to go.